in no democracy in the world does, the incumbent have the ability to veto people.
Tim, thank you so much for joining us and making the time. First of all, why have you decided to run for president of the FIA?
James, one of the things that, quote unquote, being fired by Mohammed gave me an opportunity to do is to really think about what it was that I valued about dedicating 100 days or more of my time to the FIA as a volunteer. And it's really about service. As I looked at the FIA and I looked at what was going on at the FIA, I was incredibly concerned that there was this failure of leadership, this deep, corrosive effect that was going on in the FIA. And I was worried that if this continued on for another 4 years, that this was going to be deeply problematic for motorsport in general, for the member clubs that the FIA serves, and for the fans out in the grandstands in the case of motorsport, but also road users and so on. So I just was very concerned about the state of affairs. And a number of people came to me and said, look, Tim, you are the right guy. You've had this experience. You've got the leadership skills. We would like you to do it. And those things combined, plus people willing to support us financially, because this is an expensive process. And I have to say the support of my wife, who said, you will not be satisfied standing by on the sidelines watching this. All of that combined, I decided to run.
So you said that a number of people said to you, you're the right guy for this, but what qualifies you to do this role?
My dad was one of the two founders of McLaren Racing. He was partners with Bruce back in 1963. My uncle Timmy, who I'm named after, raced. He was Bruce's first partner out on the racetrack. And so I've been in it all my life. I tried to get as far away from it as possible. I actually joined the U.S. Army. I was I was in the infantry as a private. I enlisted as a private, and then I got my commission, and I went on to be an officer in the U.S. Army. But as I went forward, I discovered that there are a lot of things about the military and motor racing that are very similar, which is that it's all about teamwork. I was a TV producer for international broadcasts of IndyCar. I helped build racetracks. I organized races. I promoted races. I was in charge of logistics all over the world for Champ Car. And I ended up getting hired as the Senior Vice President of Racing Operations at Champ Car. So I did that for 8 years. I had the opportunity in 2009 to reach out to Max Mosley at the FIA. I said, look, I'd like to get involved in whatever area you would let me. And he said, if you can get on a plane and fly yourself, we will put you as a GP2, GP3 steward. From there, I ended up stewarding virtually every category in the FIA, from rallycross to touring cars, from sports cars to eventually as chairman of the stewards of Formula One.
You're standing against the incumbent then, Mohammed Ben Sulayem. What will your message be to the voting clubs about what you would do differently?
I think it's probably helpful to explain what the voting clubs are. There are two sides to the FIA. There's the sporting side, which most of your readers and listeners will be familiar with. In the UK, it's Motorsport UK. In the US, where I come from, it's a club called the ACUS, which is made up of NASCAR and IndyCar and all the other clubs that you would think of. And each one of those has a vote. There's also a mobility side. That in the UK, that's the RAC and the AA, for instance, and they are mobility clubs. Around the world, mobility clubs are involved in everything from providing insurance to safety to sustainability and any number of other areas for road users. So that's the whole other side of the FIA. There are 245 voting member clubs within the FIA. And so what I can offer them is two things. One is an area that Mohammed, in all honesty, has done reasonably well, which is to listen to those smaller member clubs around the world who are in underserved areas who need help. But the other thing that I can do is I can also do this in a professional way that means that the FIA is a trusted, respected partner around the world for members, member clubs, as well as professional motorsports, as well as the drivers, for instance, who don't want to be treated like children. So we need to be a group that listens, works together with people, and we can be more successful that way.
So things like all the hoo-ha with the swearing for Max Verstappen and all that kind of stuff, you'd be across all of that and just handle that very differently.
100%. I mean, to me, this is all about demonstrating that in this case, Mohammed is a powerful man. That's baked into the regulations. The FIA has all the power it needs. It doesn't need to throw its weight around. We can go into the room and say, hey guys, look, I know at the karting track, the first word of English that you learned was the F-bomb. I get that. You were all 12 at the time, and that was it. And I've actually said this in the F1 drivers meeting. But you can go in and say, hey, but we need you to be more respectful in, these little blocks where it's an organized press conference, et cetera, et cetera. We don't want to take the emotion out of the sport. We don't want to take the emotion out of what you drive. I mean, I cannot imagine being in those cars at Silverstone this weekend. I mean, it must have been unbelievable all weekend long. And we need that emotion. We need to break down the carbon fiber wall, which is what I used to call it when I was a TV producer, and let that emotion out, because that's what the audience wants to see and to hear. They want to feel that these are emotional human beings doing something remarkable. So we need that to come out. And if we treat them with respect, if we have a respectful conversation about what we all need to do to help build the sport, they will respond. I've seen it personally. I know it. And I trust these drivers to do the right thing.
What's been the reaction so far? You had a press conference on Friday morning during the British Grand Prix weekend. You made your announcement there. What has been the reaction you've had, first of all, from within the FIA world, the people who actually be doing the voting in December, and also from, the fans, the media, etc. How have you read it, your reaction?
Well, the reaction, I would say, is split up into those three areas. Generally speaking, the FIA is a pretty opaque entity, and most fans don't really know much about it, other than they know that they don't like what they see and hear. So everything online that I've seen, and we've got a great team of people that's working together. Everything we've seen is universally positive. Although there is still the odd person that says that I'm going to bring bias because my dad, was at McLaren back in the 60s and 70s. There's the odd person who didn't like a decision I made at Mexico against Max Verstappen. So, I mean, there's all that stuff. But generally speaking, it's like, no, this is refreshing to hear. We like the idea that there can be a better federation. But as I say, the FIA is opaque, and nobody ever spent money on a ticket to watch a sanctioning body do its thing. But from the teams and from the team's perspective, the driver's perspective, people have been reaching out to me and saying, look, this is a steep hill to climb. But we thank you for at least engaging in this conversation. We like what we see. We like the openness. I think one of the biggest pieces of feedback that I've gotten is that I am not scared to answer any question. Whereas, I think that's a big contrast to what we see at present. And, from the voting clubs, I mean, there are a lot of clubs probably at the moment who would vote against Mohammed, no matter who ran. I think there's a lot of clubs who will vote for Mohammed no matter who ran. But at the end of the day, I think there's a big group of clubs in the middle who are saying, okay, well, tell us more. We need to understand why we should trust you. We need to understand how you're going to help us. Because at the end of the day, this is retail politics. This is going door to door and explaining to them the value that we can bring them, and what it is that we believe. And it's hard for them because I come from a big club, and they typically, all of these smaller clubs around the world who need the help of the FIA, deeply need that help. They're mistrustful of the larger clubs because the larger clubs tend to take care of themselves. That's not why I'm here. I come from a member club. It means I've had a lot of opportunity individually. But my goal is to give back. And the way I can give back is to give to those smaller member clubs around the world, where for them it might be, $5 for bus fare to bring marshals to the racetrack. I've told that story a couple of times. I was at a grassroots motorsports forum, and we were talking about, Formula 4 as grassroots, or, $1 million karting as grassroots. And we had this African lady from an African ASN who said, "You guys are crazy. You're out of your minds. To me, grassroots motorsports is like $5. That's what I need. I just need $5 to get my marshals to the track. And they're going to sleep on the ground when they get there." It's like, oh, okay. That's grassroots. And so, for me, it's about what can we do as a federation, whether it's on the mobility side or the sports side, to really drill down and help those clubs.
And finally, Tim, you wouldn't be doing this if you didn't think you could win. And clearly you've had some messages from inside the FIA. But some people at Silverstone over the weekend were wondering if perhaps you've left it a little bit late with the FIA presidential election just 5 months away. Are you confident you've got the time to build the coalition you need? And are you confident that you'll be the only person running against Mohammed Ben Sulayem in December?
Well, the second of those I don't get a vote on. If other people throw their hat in the ring, that's going to be something that we all need to talk about. I don't think it is possible for any of us to win against Mohammed if we split the vote. That's just honest, being honest. In terms of timing, it had to be now. I would love to have started 12 months ago, but it had to be now because we just had a meeting, an FIA meeting in Macau 2.5 weeks ago. And in those meetings, we knew he was going to change the rules again. And by again, I mean this is the 4th year in a row that he has changed the rules. And every time he's done it, it's just a little bit closer to centralizing power. How do I make it more difficult for other people to run against me? And that is not democracy. That is not the way to do this. In theory, he's given himself a veto over people who can run against him. I don't think it will work that way in practice, but I mean, in no democracy in the world does the incumbent have the ability to veto people. But without knowing what those rules were, we couldn't run. So we now know what the rules are. We know what the game is. We know how to play the game. Our team is deeply experienced. We've got a lot of people with a lot of experience who know these rules inside and out. We anticipated some of the changes. We didn't anticipate all of them. We're adjusting, but it had to be now.
Okay, well, we'll definitely stay across this between now and December when the election will take place. But for now, I know you're a very busy man. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Thanks very much, Tim.
Thank you, James. So good to talk to you again.
For more interviews and great F1 content like this, check out the James Allen on F1 podcast wherever you get your podcasts.